Hey, I'm James, and welcome to Alternate Sides, a podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship. This episode, we pull our shovels out of the trunk of the car and dig into Joel and Ethan Coen's debut feature from 1984, Blood Simple, starring Frances McDormand, John Getz, and Emmet Walsh. Along the way, we also talk about rock climbing, Wayne Shorter, and some of our professional experiences with Firsttime Directors. Here we go.
Mixing it up today.
Oh yeah, how's that?
Well, it's a Sunday today, and there's no alternate side parking. But I'm the chauffeur today, so I dropped Wilder and Margie off at the Cliffs Climbing Center. I'm sitting in the car while they climb up fake rock faces for pleasure, I guess. I'm not sure why one does this.
Okay, so now I'm getting the sense that you're against rock climbing as well. I should be keeping a list of all the things that you think are stupid. Musicals, Dungeons and Dragons, Gloomhaven, wind chimes,
Rubbish.
rock climbing,
the
Amazon Echo.
I hate the fucking Amazon. I'm not against rock climbing as a thing.
That's big of you.
But these like centers with fake walls and everyone's like, yeah man, I'm doing a V8 and I'm doing a B10A. Oh, just fuck off.
Bouldering,
rock climbing. Yeah, I don't really.
Livy's into it.
Yeah, a lot of kids are into it. I guess it's a new kind of thing. Not sure why. Yeah, so I'm sitting here in the baking sun on Butler Street, like a butler.
Mm-hmm.
Then we gotta go to the Whole Foods. It's a whole thing. Weekends.
My days of buttling are over, as you know.
Your butlering days are over. This
is the first time we're recording since I released my children.
You're like Chauncey Gardner at the beginning of the movie. You have to walk out into Philadelphia on your own.
I don't love it, I have to say. No, I'm growing into it.
So what do you do? What's the big difference? What's the biggest difference? Is it mornings, evenings? What's the biggest change? Here's another thing, just before you answer. Someone just ran by with like a big, these runners who run with the big backpacks and the tube of water, and they've probably put like bricks in their fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
That really makes me annoyed. Like it's hard enough. Run. I mean, it's hard enough. You don't need to put bricks in your backpack and fucking...
Is that what it is? I mean, if you're training for the marathon or longer, you would want to have some...
Longer? Why would you train longer than the marathon?
Well, there's the ultra marathons.
Oh, the ultra twats, yeah.
You're going to want some hydration on your person as you're running.
I don't like it. It's all fakery. That's the thing I think that I have against all of this. I don't mind any of this in the wild. If you're trying to run away from like the baboon who's going to get you, then by all means, run away. But running, climbing, it's all like we've fucked it so much. We've removed ourselves from the natural order of things to such an extent. Peloton, the bike that goes nowhere, encouraged by some douchebag playing techno music, telling you that you should feel the burn or whatever.
We're not here for a long time. We're here for a strong time.
God. I am against all of it. Related to that, there's a new Wayne Shorter documentary called Zero Gravity. Do you know about this? It's like a 3-part Amazon. First of all, we should talk at some point, maybe not right now. Why are all jazz documentaries, like just stylistically, so shit? Why are they so lame? Like they all have weird, like just really, really weird supporting footage and like drawings and it's all cosmic.
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
It's this weird thing of like animation that doesn't make any sense and doesn't add anything. You couldn't possibly add anything to like Wayne Shorter's saxophone. Anything worse than like blue drawings. Like, what is that?
Well, I think that his name was Louis Armstrong. That's the Ken Burns. But I think it's because it's music, and what are you going to do? If you don't have the live performance of Coltrane at the Plug Nickel or whatever, you're going to have to you can't just have stills. They think that's like too boring. It's not trusting your audience, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a fear that your audience is not going to be engaged enough just by listening to Wayne Shorter play the saxophone.
I mean, I'm sort of late to the Wayne Shorter game. He's pretty fucking awesome. And the documentary opens with a line from him that is, I'm going to paraphrase and possibly butcher, but it really, like, immediately I was like, oh, that's fucking fantastic. Which is, he says, there are two great moments in every life. He said, the first is the moment when you are born. And the second is the moment when you understand why.
What if I don't ever have that moment?
That's what Wilder said. Wilder said, what if you don't? What if you don't?
Yeah.
And I said, that's most people, I think.
Great.
But Wayne definitely did. He figured out why he was around. And it was to play that horn.
The genius is the man most like himself.
That's right. That's right. Same kind of idea.
Mm.
And speaking of most like themselves, that's a lovely segue. To the people on our list today.
Now, I have loved the Coen Brothers for a long time, although their movies are sometimes difficult for me to watch. I must have seen Barton Fink and or Miller's Crossing, a couple dozen times when I was in college and after, and could quote those movies to you. I had never seen Blood Simple, of course. It's very low budget and amateurish, which is fine. It was their first movie, and they shot it for whatever.
Amateurish. You mean amateur in the good sense or amateurish in the bad sense?
Well, I'm unfairly comparing it to their later works, maybe. But even by the time you get to Miller's Crossing, and certainly Barton Fink, like, it's all there. All of the camera work, the writing, the zingers, the weird humor. I don't think, to compare it, for example, to Michael Mann, I don't think that you watch this movie and the style is there already. There are certainly elements that come up, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a Coen Brothers movie to me in some ways. More in the script it does than in the filmmaking.
Interesting. I disagree. I think it is all there. I think that they refined their style over time. And I think the biggest shift from movie 1 to movie 2 is the move towards comedy. Yeah. So there are elements of comedy in this, like the dead end at the end of the street. That's a very Coen Brothers thing. Everyone always peels off down the road and then has to turn around and go the other way. It's a very Coen Brothers thing.
Yeah.
But they like the next movie after this is Raising Arizona, which is a flat out comedy. Like, it's a
screwball almost.
Exactly. It's a really fun, but it still is criminal. It's like criminal comedy. That's kind of their sweet spot. And I think that the one thing that this is much more, and I think it's by design, right? I think that they understood, first movie out, they're very smart. They weren't going to get the license to make the comedy. They knew that the way to get people's attention is you make a genre film. You make a film which has violence. You play with that violence. You twist it and make it your own. But you basically give them the things that they want, which is the blackmail and the murder and the affair and the this and the the shootout and the burying the guy. All the stuff.
Why didn't we do that?
We're idiots.
Well, we tried to do it with Central Park.
We tried with Central Park. Yeah, we tried. We never got our act together. But it's not a mystery. We know that to be true, right? We know that the thing that will get attention is a movie such as this.
I feel like that's my fault. I probably balked at the get him in a house and chop him up aspect to it. Well, you balked at it because...
Oh, no, I balk at that too, because I'm not interested in that.
But here it's very smart how the misunderstandings compound. That's very Coen Brothers-y. And that obviously comes out of like Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and those things.
Yeah.
The misunderstandings and how people double cross and then...
And it gets worse and worse. Yeah.
Yeah, which you see in... Of course, later in Fargo, most especially, I guess.
But I think, I mean, given that there's not much money on the table, right? In this, I don't know actually what the budget was, but it's not that cheap. It's a shot, it's shot beautifully. It's made on film, as everything was back then. It's it's got a lot of style. That's the thing that they have. Like the shot down the bar, right? Down the bar, a guy's like got his head on the bar, the camera goes whoop,
that's
over
one
and
of the
down.
moments.
That's Coen Brothers.
Yeah. Or the shot where she's snooping around and then falls back onto her pillow. That's pretty impressive.
There's a lot of beautiful shots. The shot down from the car to his house. There's a swish pan that does it all in one. And the whole end sequence with the bullet holes and the light coming through.
Yeah, that's very good. They had that first, I think, because I was just reading about it. They made a trailer in order to raise funding, and that was one of the images in the trailer was the backlit bullet holes in the door.
That, and even the stuff on the road and the shovel, that stuff is very reminiscent of Fargo.
That was the other image, was somebody dragging the shovel across asphalt as they approach somebody else.
There you go. Those are the images that stand out as like language.
It won't surprise you to hear that the scene where Dan Hedaya is being buried alive and pulls the gun out and then slowly is pulling the trigger, click, click.
Was difficult for you to watch?
Oh my God. I don't like that at all. But even that is very good. It's amazing. It takes a scene which is like harrowing and brutal and compelling enough, which is having to bury somebody who's not totally dead yet. But then to add in this element where the guy who's being buried alive has this gun that he pulls out and is going to try and shoot. But then it also is smart because it sets up later on. We know there are 3 bullets in 3 empty chambers. And he goes click, click, click. So you know that the next time somebody pulls that trigger, it's going to shoot somebody.
Yeah. So how is it that Frances McDormand has bullets in the gun?
What do you mean?
At the end of the movie. Yeah, I don't understand how there are bullets in the gun then.
There were 3 bullets put into the gun earlier in the movie.
They've all been fired.
Have they? No, they haven't.
Yeah.
When?
Yeah, when Hedaya's in the grave and shooting, there's no bullets left. Click, click, click. And Frances McDormand kills Thingy after the click, click, click.
Okay, I can't believe we're spending time on this. But imagine a revolver that has 6 chambers and 3 bullets. You go bullet 1, bullet 2, click, click, click. And then you've got one final bullet.
Oh, it's like the 6th bullet?
Yeah. The Coen Brothers would not fudge something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's so much up their alley.
I thought the 3 bullets had been shot. But all right. Yeah, but I think it's all there. I think everything, and I think it's like it's the beginning. It's a lot of beginnings. That's what I think about with this movie.
Well, that's fine. I mean, if I said to you, this is the first movie, not a huge budget, of these guys who later went on to make the movies we know and love, it's a great first movie.
You can tell. I think you can tell from this that they know that they've got a plan.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
No question. No question. I just, when you watch like Reservoir Dogs, like that's a first movie where
that's his best movie.
It's as much a Tarantino movie as any Tarantino movie. Do you know what I mean? And you could say the same with Michael Mann and Thief and there are others. This one, I'm not saying that it doesn't feel like a Coen Brothers movie at times, but it does to me. It doesn't feel like they've totally found their feet, which is obviously no problem at all. That's fine. I'm not taking issue with that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think that's right, maybe. But it's like it's their first thing, right? Is it the first Carter Burwell score?
Yeah, and it's Sonnenfeld, right?
The first Sonnenfeld movie, first time he shot anything.
You had some dealings with Sonnenfeld, didn't you, at one point?
Not me. Margie did a pilot that he directed. He's a very, very funny, quirky, like goofy. He's a big goofball. He comes in every day with a different wig. He's very funny.
A different wig?
Yeah, he would wear these absurd like wigs while he was directing. He would say something funny where there'd be a scene with 3 people. I would watch him direct them, and he'd come and he'd say, "Okay, cut. 2 of you were really good in that. Let's try it again." He was very funny.
That is very good.
He was a blast to be around. He's like one of those guys that everyone enjoyed hanging out with him. He's great energy. He's a great interview as well. I don't know if you ever heard him on I think he did one of the Maron podcasts or something like that. He's very, very full of stories, amazing stories. But yeah, he shot basically this, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, I think, right?
That makes sense.
And did he not shoot Barton Fink, or he did shoot Barton Fink? I don't know. It's around there that they switched to Deakins. I think it's also the beginning of it's like the birth of that new wave 80s, which went into the 90s, of American independent movies. This is the first movie that doesn't feel like the 70s. This is a different kind of indie movie. The music is changing, the style is changing. It's much more deliberate. The camera work is not handheld. It's very methodical. It's much more influenced by Scorsese than it is by Cassavetes and Friedkin.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the beginning, I feel like. This is the Coen Brothers show up around here. Soderbergh shows up around here. Spike Lee shows up around here. Alexander Payne comes around shortly after this. This was that moment of the indie, the American indie, starting in the like 80s, mid 80s onwards. A thing which is on life support now. These movies don't get made or watched anymore, really. It's also Frances McDormand's first movie, speaking of beginnings. She's very good.
She was in a movie that Molly did called Every Secret Thing, I think it was called.
Uh-huh.
And Molly and Fran really hit it off.
Yeah, she seems awesome.
Molly was like, if she was 10 years younger, I was 10 years older, I bet we would be like good friends. She just seems awesome, like very cool. And
yeah. We used to run into her in the fairway on the Upper West Side. It was very funny. What's the title? I love the title. Blood Simple. Very good.
I looked this up. It comes from one of those noir things, and I'm just going to read directly from Wikipedia here. The title derives from the Dashiell Hammett novel Red Harvest, 1929, in which the term blood simple describes the addled, fearful mindset of people after prolonged immersion in violent situations.
That's good. It's my kind of title.
Yeah, it is your kind of title. I was thinking that, actually.
It's like, it speaks to it without being obvious and somehow just sticks around.
Yeah.
It's the right title. Blood Simple. Very good title.
And the boyfriend, the lover, is definitely blood simple after he buries the guy.
Yeah.
He's just kind of wandering around in a daze.
I mean, you would. That's a great scene where the truck is coming down the road.
That too is like sort of revisited in Fargo.
Yeah.
Well, not a little bit. It's exactly, isn't it? He's pulling the cop off of the highway, and those two people drive by, and they're looking at them. Is it a good movie? Is it a great movie?
I think it's a great first movie. Like, it's extremely confident. It also, as someone who, as an editor, one of the things that I did a lot, especially early days, was
what?
I'm getting a call. Hang on. I'm just gonna have to send that to us.
Always getting a call, this guy. He must be real papa. It's Sunday morning.
It was cut that out. It was as an editor, like I say, especially in the early days, I worked a lot with first-time directors, and it's really it's kind of amazing and heartbreaking and difficult to see, because first-time directors, the thing that you struggle with is that usually you've worked on this script, and you've shopped it around, you've given it to a million people, you've taken a bunch of notes, people have opinions about it, you've really worked it. Then you go out and you shoot this thing.
Then you come home and realize what you've actually got to work
exactly with. So the script that you massaged and tailored and curated for so long has now become a bunch of shots, and the shots somehow have their own story to tell. They have their own logic. They want to be put together in a certain way, and it's not necessarily in the way that you did it in the script, because to actually translate what you wrote to an image on the screen is the whole game, and it's not easy at all. And the first-time director usually is confronted with that failure, or the distance between the script and the image. And so I would see people at their most vulnerable, or their most frustrated, because you're in there telling that, you were looking at the footage going, well, I know you thought scene 17 was like your best scene, but now we should cut scene 17 because it just doesn't work. It's just sitting there like a lemon. And they would get mad at you. What do you mean? I know that scene 17 works. So everyone said it's their favorite bit. Like, yeah, but you didn't shoot it like that. You didn't shoot it right. You didn't do it right. Either you go and reshoot scene 17, or you deal with the fact that what you now have, which is the movie, is this. And I don't get the sense that the Coen brothers had any difficulty. They are able to maintain tone for 95 minutes, which is the hardest thing when you're starting out. Like, it's really hard to maintain the tone throughout the movie, especially for them who they do this weird hybrid tone where it's like comedy and gruesome violence. Really tough to pull off. And yeah, it just seems like they knew what they were doing. It seems like maybe they say that they failed in some ways, but it feels like they pulled it all off.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little queasy thinking, because I can imagine what that feeling is like, to be looking at the at the scenes and just be like, oh,
this is shit.
But in terms of the script, I think you're absolutely right that the Coen brothers are amazingly clean at that transition from script to movie. If you read their scripts, it's all right there. I mean, it really is. It's almost like you're reading something that was written after the fact. Of course it wasn't. And that helps because they're the writers and the directors and the editors, whatever. But they know exactly what they want at the script stage, and somehow they're able to deliver on that.
I think like Hitchcock used to say, like, I don't think they're discovering a lot in the editing process. I think they really are just putting it together. And sure, you're editing for performance, you're editing for camera, you're editing for what's most effective, but you're not like juggling the movie around. You're not going, oh, you know what would be if we start with scene 14?
Yeah.
Didn't I read somewhere that I love this about them, when they did a director's cut, it was shorter than the original. That's brilliant. Like, everyone does, Coppola does his redux, it's an hour longer, and Oliver Stone does these director's cuts that are, oh, here's the extra 90 minutes that they wouldn't let me have. And their director's cut is like 4 minutes shorter. Like, we just tightened it up a little. We saw some gaps that we didn't see 30 years ago.
Well, I also, as a composer, worked with a bunch of first-time directors, and very few of them actually even made a second feature, which says something to you about how hard it is in this business and everything. But I did have the experience a lot of times, which is similar. It's interesting because you and I are both work in post-production mostly. Obviously, we've written stuff and you've directed a few movies and everything, but I have scored a bunch of movies where they were trying to find the movie in the edit and like really shuffling things around and trying to make this actor's, like, how do we convey that this character is upset when we don't have the footage of it, or how do we convey that this character went to the supermarket and came back when we don't have the footage and can't do reshoots. And like,
well, I also think that there is an aesthetic to, there is this thing of the precision of someone like the Coen brothers, or like I say, Hitchcock. He was famous for cutting it basically as he was filming. He would almost know the number of frames that he was going to hold on shots. He would say, we're going to start with, this much on this shot, then we'll cut here and it'll be shorter and it'll get, quicker. And then there'll be this long master and then we'll cut to here. And he had it all planned out, and he would shoot very specifically so that the studio couldn't mess with it. Wells started to have to do this as well, because he knew that they would, if he shot coverage, the studio would make him re-edit in a way that he didn't like. So they became very, very, very good at editing in their heads and on set.
So almost like shooting the edit.
Yeah.
Rather than like shooting a scene a bunch of different ways and then trying to put together
the opposite of like how Scorsese does. Scorsese shoots coverage till the cows come home, and then Thelma and him sit down and fucking hammer it out. And they've got a million options of how to do it. And I do think that there is, aesthetically, I think there's something that appeals to me more about the messy process and the discovery in that messy process, which allows for a different kind of movie. I've always felt that the Coen brothers, I love them, and it's a very specific flavor, but they're not my favorite filmmakers because of that, because I think that they are too in control.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel a bit cold or like all-knowing in a way.
But that makes sense that you're a Cassavetes guy.
Yeah. I mean, Cassavetes famously, like with a movie like Husbands, he cut it 4 different ways. The whole movie, he just cut it. So he would cut one version to like bring out the Ben Gazzara character. Then he cut a whole different version and made it all about the Peter Falk character. And then one version that was about his character. Like he really he had the footage because it was all long. They would say every time they hit go on the camera, they rolled out. Like they would just run 12 minutes. And so they had tons and tons of these fucking amazing guys doing shit. And then they'd go and figure it all out later on. Yeah, I do like that. I mean, I also like Bergman. That's part of why Bergman is so brilliant. He seems to me to be that synthesis of those two things. He is at once emotionally high octane and right at the heart of things, and clinically and also calculated, cold, brilliant, understands the aesthetic, has total control, but it doesn't feel like it's cold, even though it is like it's famously like Scandinavian kind of
austere and whatever else, but it's that emotional rawness which you were talking
exactly
about.
It's raw. That's right. There's nothing raw about the Coen brothers.
It's interesting because I also, speaking of mastery and of what's on the page and what ends up being in the edit and where you find those things, I also rewatched The Insider.
That's a great movie.
It's such a great movie and such a pleasure to watch. And there's the scene, so one of the big things at stake in the movie is the question of whether or not the Russell Crowe character is going to testify at this trial in Mississippi, I think it is. And the tobacco companies put a gag order on it, basically saying like, it's not illegal for you to go give this deposition, but the second you step back into Kentucky, which is where he lives, you can be put in jail. So he's deliberating whether or not to do this. And it's kind of the big dramatic emotional moment. Side note, I realized Pacino is the insider also. I don't know why it took me 20 years to figure that out. So it's this big moment of will he or won't he? And then he finally decides, he says, fuck it, let's go to court. It's just awesome because it's the big moment. It's like a big emotional climax moment. So what does Michael Mann do? It goes silent. And he brings in this classical guitar music or nylon.
Oh yeah. I could see it.
And you just have this like a minute or two of like the motorcade of like him and all the police getting into the cars and driving to the courthouse and getting out, and the press coming up, and just like the shot from behind, close up of his head as he's in the car and they're driving. Oh my gosh, it's so well done. It's so incredibly well done. That takes knowing your craft, and also takes balls to be like, at this big emotional moment, we're just going to pull everything out, and that's going to make it land. Even there's such space, like he just opens it.
I wonder, I'd be very curious, this would be a fun craft question, whether they started like that or whether they built up the big fanfare version and then they just kept going, you know what, might be better like this.
Yeah, because you can see that even that same, and it also speaks to how like important sound and music is.
Yeah,
you could practically do the same visuals with that like rum da dum da dum 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 jugga ba bum ba bum as they're coming to the courthouse, and like,
which is probably the first instinct. Yeah,
just looping back to what I was saying earlier about the music is the last thing you can change
right
in a movie, and when the movie's not working, it puts a lot of pressure on the music. Because it's the last thing, you frequently like, okay, we need to deliver this movie on March the 1st. And so in October, you have an edit where you're going to edit from October to December and then do the music, whatever. But the edit runs late, or you do reshirts. The March 1st date never changes, but the amount of time left to score the movie gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
That's right.
Well, movies from 1985.
Go on then.
1985, like pretty amazing again in terms of the movies coming out that year. Not like 84. 84 really was bananas. That the number of like huge or influential movies that came out that year, or movies that started franchises. Here are some movies from 1985 I have seen. How about the number 2 and the number 3 movies from that year? Rambo and Rocky IV.
It seems like every year that you say there's one of those movies or 2 of those movies. Were they just knocking these out every year?
I don't know, but well, they couldn't have been, because Rambo is the First Blood Part 2 is only the second movie. But Rocky IV, the point is that Sly Stallone was the star of the number 2 and 3 movies of the year. That's pretty impressive. Actually, I have a confession to make. I haven't seen either of those movies. I think I've seen them. It's like one of these things where I've seen them, I've probably seen all of the scenes in them, but I don't think I've ever sat down and watched Rocky IV or Rambo. It's funny because a scene from Rambo was on TV or something somehow in the last few weeks. And it was so cartoonish. The violence was like ridiculous. It was like a Simpsons parody of.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I was ever scared of that. What's wrong with me?
You've come a long way in this recording.
Okay, movies I have seen. A movie I really love, Witness.
Yeah, you're Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford and Peter Weir. How can you say no? And it's set in Philly. Oh, I love it so much.
Trifecta. Okay. Thank God we don't have to watch that again.
Oh, come on now. I don't know why you were. That's a great drama. It's got stakes, got a little action. It's got Danny Glover.
Yeah. If you only had Richard Gere in it too, then it'd be really the winner.
I hate you. Here's one you like: National Lampoon's European Vacation.
The best.
Some good
You've
comedies that year. Yeah, Better Off Dead, which was a movie my sisters and I quoted endlessly to each other. Fletch, another movie I watched many
Fletch, that's a good movie.
After Hours.
Oh yeah,
which is still, I think, one of my favorite Scorsese movies. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. This was supposed to be the start of a.
What is this?
This was supposed to be the start of a franchise starring Fred Ward as this like former.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, this cop who becomes like a martial arts.
What?
Secret government agent.
Say the name again.
Remo Williams. The Adventure Begins.
and ends apparently.
And Joel Grey plays the martial arts master Chun.
Sounds awful.
Yeah, I think it's pretty bad. Another movie my sisters and I quoted endlessly, Gotcha, with Anthony Edwards.
I don't think I've seen that either.
It's a great Cold War movie. Okay, here we go. Movies from 1985 I haven't seen. There are some really good ones in here. I think it's not going to be, I think for you, I know which one you're going to pick, but there are really legitimate. It's going to be, okay, here's the first one, Showa.
We should watch Showa.
Yeah, 9 hours. Yeah,
Showa. I've never seen Showa either.
That's just very heavy lifting, I think. The Goonies.
You've never seen The Goonies?
No. I might have a friend had it on VHS and I watched it, but I don't think so.
Josh Brolin.
Let me just get through, because there are a few that are in that same category. Real Genius, St. Elmo's Fire, Weird Science.
Wow.
I've never seen any of those.
Wow, okay. Wait, these are all 1985?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Okay.
I have friends who like The Outsiders. They love The Outsiders. They love Pee-wee's Big Adventures. These were seminal classic movies of their childhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow. To Live and Die in L.A.
This is Kurt Russell. No, that's Escape. That's Escape from. I'm thinking of Escape from.
Oh yeah, Escape from. No, this is Friedkin, I think, with Willem
Dafoe
and.
I don't know if I've seen this movie. Maybe
I think it's like a very gritty. Like he plays a guy who's out to get this counterfeiter.
I may have seen it, but I don't remember it at all. It's as if I haven't seen it.
All right, I'm gonna mark that one as a possible.
Okay.
Commando.
That's a stupid movie. I've seen that.
That movie was the one that my peers, and I remember, in high school.
That's the one where at the end it's like him. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger with one machine gun and basically an entire army, and he just systematically just goes through and kills them all.
All right, here's one. Ran.
Oh, oh man, that's a good fucking movie.
I felt like when I saw that, I was like, oh boy, that's going to be the one.
Oh, that's the one. So good.
Kurosawa's take on King Lear.
Fucking amazing. I've seen it like 5 times.
I'm afraid to say this one because I'm afraid that you might make me watch it. Come and see.
Ooh, Jesus. That's I don't know that I could watch that again. It's so, talk about hard to watch.
This was World War II, Russian World War II movie, right?
It's the most harrowing war movie you'll ever see.
Yeah, Ebert said, described it as one of the most devastating films ever about anything.
Yeah. I took Margie to see it years ago, and she just was like, I don't know why anyone would make anyone watch that movie. I mean, she was like, it's incredible, but it's too much.
Yeah. All right, let's pivot then to another one. Police Story.
The Jackie Chan?
Yeah.
I love that movie. That's so good. The opening 10, 15 minutes of that is phenomenal. Phenomenal. So bonkers crazy. The stunts, the everything. It's just hilariously brilliant. Yeah.
Out of Africa. I know you're not going to pick that, but that was another one. I remember that getting a lot of Oscar attention, right? That's Redford and the Street, right?
Street, yeah.
Sidney
Is that
Pollack?
Yeah, Sidney Pollack. Yeah.
Jagged Edge.
I can't believe you've never seen Jagged Edge. You would love Jagged Edge. It's
I
a
know,
classic.
it was too scary.
It's not scary at all.
It's like I would like to see it. It's like it's one of those Joe Esterhazy scripts.
Yeah,
Glenn Close, Jeff Bridges. Yeah,
you would love it. It's so twisty turny, and you think you got it, you don't have it, and then there's like a thing that brings it all together. It's fantastic. It's a classic of the genre.
All right. Well, maybe I'll watch that just separately.
Okay.
All right, last one. The Falcon and the Snowman.
Yeah.
I only mention that because it's got a great David Bowie, Pat Metheny song in it. This Is Not America.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
Ran.
It's got to be around. When was Throne of Blood? Did you ever see Throne of Blood?
The only Kurosawa I've seen is Rashomon, and that was 30 years ago.
So what year was Throne of Blood? Did it not fall into our purview? Because I would have picked that probably.
That's his take on Macbeth.
Macbeth, yeah.
1957.
Holy shit.
I'm not that old. Yeah.
He's turning 100. That's my favorite, I think, probably my favorite of the adaptations. But Ran is pretty spectacular. Very different.
What about the Wells Shakespeare adaptations? Does he have an Othello, and doesn't he have also a...
He has a Chimes at Midnight, which is like a Falstaff. He's kind of cobbled together from all the Henrys, Henry V, 1 and 2, and something else. He has a Macbeth. They were all cobbled together because he ran out of money, so he's always shooting out of, like he famously said, like this guy, he threw the punch in Morocco, and the guy received the punch in Libya. It's like he's moving around. It's ridiculous.
One day we'll have to talk about Wells.
Yeah.
I was reading the TLS yesterday, as one does, and there was a review of a new book about the 100 Years' War, speaking of the Henrys. 940 some pages book about the 100 Years' War, and that's volume 5 in a series of books about the 100 Years' War. One guy. It's like he's devoted his career to...
Well, he figured out the why.
The why?
The moment you're born and the moment you understand why.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I guess so.
It's what he's here to do.
What am I here to do?
You're here to watch Ron. All right. They're coming down from the cliffs. The climbing is over.
All right, so I'll see you, Ren. It's a long one, right? And it's in Japanese. You're really picking
Long and in Japanese, but worth it, I assure you.
All right.
All right, sounds good.
See you next time.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye. And that's that. Next time, we survey the expenses of Akira Kurosawa's period tragedy, Ran. It's based on Shakespeare's King Lear and is one of the last pre-CGI epics. Check it out if you have a chance. See you next time.